my dad was a police officer. He was a detective, and they're very contrasting personalities. My dad like is kind of wild,
Yeah.
and my mom is very like motherly educator, and so I got a bit of both of those things, but I definitely think I got this streak of calculated risk from my dad,
Mm.
and maybe sometimes uncalculated risk, but
Yeah.
but
I feel
um,
like that comes with being a detective too. You just learn how to, read people's body languages and read situations really well because you're constantly thrust into the middle of
mhm.
sketchy shit.
Well, and and for a period of time, he was doing like narcotics work. So he was undercover and he was in situations
Oh, damn.
where they were risky, and then also just how he grew up as a kid, just just a little bit more on the wild side. And so, I think there was always an understanding. My parents were very open with us about talking with us about responsibility and taking responsibility for your actions and being safe and all that. But we were afforded the trust by them to kind of just be
Mm.
kids, and it was pretty amazing. So
Do you remember, like, have you had any talks with your dad as he was, I'm assuming he's retired now?
he's retired, yeah.
Did you have any talks with him when you became an adult where you're like, all right, I want to know the crazy shit that you did when you were a detective? Like, give me the details on your wild cases and like stuff that he would come home and you were 12 years old and he was clearly shaken, but like obviously you can't share that type of stuff with a 12-year-old. Like, have you had any conversations like that?
Well, it's interesting. I think there's two parts that I have a two-part answer to that. I think his openness and honesty exposed us to a certain degree of what he was dealing with
Mm,
when we were kids. Um, he had a warehouse that was, within bike riding distance from our house, and it was a warehouse with a bunch of seized vehicles in it from different busts that they have done. And so I was kind of free to go there and say hi to him. And he had a
yeah.
little office in the corner of that building. And so I was exposed to a lot of what his work was, and kind of understood it because he was open with us. But the second part of that answer is that I know there's a lot of things that he hasn't told me and my brother, and I don't think he ever will.
Mm,
And I know this because my friend Peter, who drove down from the U.S. to Panama with me, lives in my hometown. He's not from there, but lives in my hometown, and he's become very close with my parents. And he's told me he hangs out with my dad. Sometimes they'll have beers and stuff, and he's told me that my dad's told him stories and what he said, quote, "My kids don't even know this story."
damn.
So I think maybe he feels comfortable saying it to somebody else that's not part of family.
Yeah.
But
Kind of like when I've been in situations where it's late night and I'm in a bar and then there's three guys in there, some random girl at the end of the bar, and then the guy next to me will just turn to me and tell me about his shitty marriage, and I'm like, you haven't even told this to your wife. Like, I just met you 40 seconds ago.
Yeah, right.
But I feel like there is a comfortability in unloading to a stranger, like someone's drunk at a bar, like you're somewhere wherever where you're never going to see that person again, and it allows you to get it off your chest, but it's 99.9% of the time it's never going to come back to you, so you like get the feeling of getting rid of it without it affecting your life.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. And I don't pry, I don't ask. It's just, you know, we don't talk about specific instances. And I remember I've my brother and I were the sons of a detective, and so inherently we kind of have this like, oh, let's snoop around and see what we can figure out. And I
Yeah.
remember the first thing that really um, opened my eyes, and I don't even know if he knows that we saw it, but he was in our living room, and that was back when we had VCRs,
Yeah.
and he was in the living room and he was watching a video. And then he left, but I could tell that he didn't want us to be around.
Mm.
And so my parents left to go do something. My brother and I were there, and of course, like curious kids, we popped it in. and it was him and another detective recovering a body from a reservoir that was nearby.
Oh
And
God.
so we got a
And how old were you again?
I think I was probably, you know, I would say I was probably 9 or 10.
Damn.
And
That's heavy shit.
yeah, and so like I mean, it was just right there in my face, and I'll never forget the image. And I mean, she'd been in the reservoir for a while, and there was like a weight tied around her ankle, and it was like heavy stuff. And I was like,
Uh,
oh, this is a reality of life. Um, but I think through the years, all of that being exposed to that has given me like maybe a greater appreciation for the good in life,
yeah.
and also understanding that there are good people and there are bad
Yeah.
people, and what bad people are capable of. So
Do you feel like, can you remember every part of the videotape? Because I'm thinking back to like things that I've seen, and like nothing nearly as traumatic as, seeing my dad pull a body out of a lake or a
mhm.
reservoir when I was 10 years old. But like the things that have happened, I feel like trauma is just recorded differently in your brain, where like for some reason, like there are things I kind of remember from when I was younger, and there are things that are just like, oh, I could like paint this thing if I wanted to, just because the way that my brain took it in. Do you feel that way with the videotape, where like I can remember exactly what was going on?
Yeah, I remember, and memories are funny like that too, because I mean, maybe we don't remember exactly what it was, but maybe over time, re- like envisioning that memory over and over, you create a different memory of
Yeah.
what it was. But I feel pretty confident that I know exactly what it looked like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some certain details that I'm not going to discuss, but it was yeah, it's definitely imprinted on my
Yeah.
brain. So yeah.